BC says, turn it to 11. You want me to turn it to 11? You know how hard it was to get my mic working?
Yeah, I accidentally put a little thing in the chat while we were doing troubleshooting.
Yeah, it was weird.
We figured it out, though.
I'm podcasting from my Airbnb today because I felt that it was better for my mental health than going into the office and recording. So
yeah, it's good to get away from the office a little bit. Yeah. And as you mentioned off mic, you're a little more comfortable in the space now. You feel a little more at home, and that's good.
Yeah. Well, first of all, hello, everyone. Hello, everyone who's going to be attending today or who's going to be attending later, watching this later. I know that Char and I are both excited to do something that's actually going to be a fun show as opposed to the last.
We need one, don't we? I mean, last week was necessary, but it was also like emotionally draining, and I'm ready to just turn it up to 11 and have a good time here. We've got a nice little medley of topics that we're going to go through today. Yeah,
we do indeed. And the funny thing is the reason why that wiki tidbit is in our chat is because we're trying to troubleshoot my microphone on my laptop because I am usually a Mac guy. I use a Mac 99.9% of the time, but I game on a PC because as much as I love the M1 Silicons, their integrated graphics card isn't nearly as close as a dedicated graphics card. So, when one raids Warcraft, one needs cutting edge graphics. So that's what we do.
There you go. Yeah. And with that said, hello, welcome to the Zócalo. Just in case you're not sure what the heck this thing is, we haven't even gotten to that yet. We're a little digressive today. It's going to be that kind of a show. It's probably good that we're doing a medley. I'm Char. That is Norm. And today we are going to start off talking about the big news topic, which is Babylon 5 on HBO Max. Nice and upscaled. Norm, you've been watching it. You are going to report to me because I have not capitulated yet. So I've got to know just what I'm missing out on. And then we're going to go to Rebo and Zooty. We're going to ask you, our audience, are they funny or not? And I am ready to make tallies as people make their cases. So if you've got reasons for or against, I want to see them in the comments. We're also possibly going to debate, should they have gone into politics or not? We know they were contemplating it. Is it a smart move or not? We can vote on that too. We've got all sorts of ideas here. So it's going to be a jam-packed hour.
I also am sporting a new shirt. If you want to take a look at this.
Look at that. Hot stuff.
I think it's quite stylish,
Yeah,
you gotta love
nice.
You gotta love the sword and board on Babylon 5. Okay, so before we start, we'd like to salute all of our fans that have showed up today or going to be showing up later.
We got a nice crowd here at the top. So Val to you.
I promise I'll get my scotch here. It's just I haven't.
Is it in your office? It's all right. We're doing the Garibaldi version. We're drinking water.
Yeah, water is the course of the day today. Okay, so with Babylon 5 on HBO Max. Now, Babylon 5 on HBO Max and the remastered version is available on HBO Max if you have that streaming service, if you've subscribed to that. It is also available on iTunes in this new remastering. And I do believe, based on my account, it's an upgrade to if you've already purchased Babylon 5. So they're not double dipping you on that.
Okay, that's good to know. I wasn't aware of that.
I can double check that, but at least that's how it's been working, on my service. So I can see if my old Babylon 5 file still exists, but it's probably been overwritten because since Babylon 5 now streams in 1080, it will supersede the file, I guess, that's on Apple TV. But I'm gonna tech the tech trademark mission log, but I can do that. So I'm going to tech the tech here. Yeah. So on Facebook, about I think last week, a friend of mine linked me this article to Engadget. Now, Engadget is, if you're not familiar with it, is kind of like a very good tech review blog, online magazine. And unbeknownst to probably most, if not all, Babylon 5 fans, because nobody talked about this in any of the forums that I follow, or maybe that you follow, or maybe that any of you follow, no one knew that they were going to drop a 4K remastered version of Babylon 5. We knew that they were going to release Babylon 5 on HBO
Oh, wait,
Max.
so this is in 4K?
Now, yes and no. Yes and no. So I'm going to get into that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to get into that.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of confusion. I've seen a lot of people tweeting at JMS, is this right? Is this right? And I think just the whole myriad of articles that talked about HBO Max putting Babylon 5 out. I mean, maybe some misinformation is going around, but then also just people don't even know where to start just because the flurry of news has been downright overwhelming, which is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, overwhelming.
It's kind of great and not great at the same time because you want your information stream to be consistent and from the top down, right?
Yeah.
So, so I've been doing, I've been doing like a lot of.
Joe's not even involved. Like they're not telling him anything, and people are pestering him with questions that he cannot answer. He knows as much as we do.
Yep, because this is all done, with the powers that be, the producers, people
Warner
who believe
Brothers.
that, Warner Brothers and HBO Max, people who believe that this license still has a little bit of juice to squeeze from that. And believe me, the juice is worth the squeeze on this. And if you have friends that have never seen Babylon 5 to begin with, this is the perfect time to do it because the short critique that I can give you, best looking Babylon 5 release ever by a country mile. That's not saying a lot though by comparison because when the Babylon 5 DVDs first came out, they were not great. They were DVD standard quality, subpar, and they were and essentially they were transfers from the videotapes. And videotapes go from the videotape line screen at the time, and this is like the mid to late 1990s, or the lowest line screen possible on magnetic tape. That was transferred onto DVD, and then those were subsequently, I believe, I don't really have the proof for it, but I believe based on the quality, those were the files that were put into streaming and then reduced amount in size there because streaming data equals money, low data. Exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, just a complete, downgrade in terms of quality. And when we started the Zócalo back in 2018, it was because they had put Babylon 5 on Amazon Prime for the first time.
Correct.
And that was fantastic because a lot of new people were watching Babylon 5 just because it was available on a streaming platform because it hadn't been on Netflix in years and there was nowhere else to get it. But the quality was awful.
Right.
So a lot of people got turned off on that. So I'm really hoping that with this upscaled version and back to the 4:3 ratio, which I think is going to help make it look a lot better, is people will give it another chance or watch it for the first time, or a lot of people are going to come back and watch it all over again. And we're going to have a nice little renaissance once again of talking Babylon 5.
And you're both right. You and BC are both right. There were DVDs that were quote unquote widescreen, but those DVDs were they were pushed in, meaning that you can create a widescreen image off of a 4:3 picture if you push in just so. But remember, 16:9 is a standard format now for widescreen for HD.
Right.
If you divide that by 4, which is what we do to create the pixel density that we want to in relationship to 4:3, 16 divided by 4 is 4. Yes, but 9 divided by 4 is not. So when you do 4:3, if you do the pixel density to upscaling, it would be 16:12, which means that some of the top and bottom will be lost and the fidelity will be changed. So what they have done is that they scanned the original 16:9s with the overlay of the imagery on the 4:3. And they upscaled that and they scanned that to 4K. However, that is just to improve the majority of the quality of the live action shots, which is the majority of the film. It's not, I would say probably in the span of Babylon 5 ratio of live action shots to Amiga computer generated graphics. It's, out of a 45-minute show is probably around 90-10, maybe less. So
maybe
the
depending on the show.
Yeah, depending on the show. But most of the effects it wasn't really a super effects heavy show. It was just a very not great effects heavy show. So long story short, the report in Engadget said that it was a 4K scan plus cleanup. Now, cleanup can be done algorithmically based on a lot of the software that they've created to do a lot of kind of digital cleanup.
Uh-huh.
But when they took the 4K scan, they reduced it down to 1080 because that was the highest level of quality and the most reasonable enough quality that the effects can handle without looking overblown or too upscaled, because they would create artifacting in the image that would look artificial, obviously.
And you don't want that.
And you don't want that. So, long story short, the live action stuff looks phenomenal. Phenomenal.
You showed me some screenshots, and it really does look sharp.
Yes, you can see almost kind of the fabric texture in the Earth Alliance uniforms. You can see the pebble grain in the leather detail. You can see where the uniforms evolved over time. You can see certain quality in terms of the fabrication of the costumes. The Minbari costume textures are of a far higher detail than you've ever seen before. And I was telling you this in Severed Dreams, the very opening scene with Major Ryan. I never noticed that he actually had stubble and dark eyes under his dark circles under his eyes.
Yeah, you really can't see that in the prior releases, but that is a really cool attention to detail, because he would be a little haggard and he would have not slept for so many hours after General Haig, is gone.
Well, you had all those people nipping at his heels, and he's like, what are we going to do? So when you see somebody like that, like, I don't have time to shave, I don't have time to shower, you look the part, it gets you far more into the narrative of what's being done than just, going along with the story because that's all you really have. So now when you're looking at it, you can look at it from a far different standpoint of, do the characters have blemishes on their face? Are they shaven? Are they sweating? Is their
who was
hair
having a breakout at that time?
Exactly, and that's the kind of detail that you want. Like, so the episode where Messages from Earth, where they were at the breakfast scene, and then Marcus got Ivanova her bacon and eggs.
Yeah,
you could actually see the fat lines, the fat grain in the bacon.
Oh wow!
Now it was only for a brief second, but those are the things that you want to look for when it comes to these kind of like high resolution scans. Now, that being said, when you start off with something good, it can get better. But when you start off with something, suboptimal, it can only get slightly better, because there are some scenes where some of the color timing isn't quite so. You can see different shades between, say, a brand new Earth Force uniform and maybe something that was literally reskinned for a background character. You can see the difference in the blues. Some of the color timing in the plates when it shifts from live action to computer generated shots the hues changed a little bit. But all of that being said, it is what we've been waiting for from a standpoint that you can go to a friend and say, look, it's finally time for you to watch this show, because I think that you'll be able to actually get into the narrative, because the quality is that much better.
We've got a comment from Earl in the chat, basically reflecting that idea. Is he has acquaintances who are finally going to watch the show just because there is a upscaled edition that's worth the watching now, and prior to that, staying away. I really do wonder just how many people have done that with Babylon 5, hearing about, oh God, the special effects don't hold up, blah, blah, blah. I mean, we've heard it all before. But right now, I'm afraid this is as good as it's going to get for a long time. So if there is a time, now is the time.
I mean, it is hard.
I haven't even done it yet. I feel kind of bad, but okay, here's where I'm coming from on it. It's like, okay, I've seen Babylon 5 a million times, and I am excited to see the upscale. Don't get me wrong. I am going to see it. But I kind of hit a weird part of the COVID isolation timeline where one moment I was fine. And then like within the span of a day, like my brain broke. I lost concept of time. I was suddenly not fine. I was having an existential crisis of, okay, I'm in such a rut. Nothing matters. Nothing makes sense. I don't want to do anything. I'm kind of paralyzed into doing nothing. It was just a really weird headspace. And I needed to really shake things up and change my routine and do some new things to just really get myself out of there. So I've been staying away from more familiar things, like, say, watching more Babylon 5, because I've done that, to doing other new stuff.
Oh, sure. No, I completely understand. And I wish that there was like a little bit more marketing support fanfare for a rollout like this, because then
Sure.
it gives like we the fans or the fans, I like how some of the fans out there are calling themselves first ones, because now you're going to get that distinction. All fandoms have that distinction. Like, were you a TOS fan? Because I was there at the beginning. Well, I wasn't born yet, sir. So F off, right? So, like I can't help that, right? If there's an 18-year-old or 19-year-old out there that was born in the span of when Babylon 5 was off the air, and now they're of age that they can watch it, encourage that. Don't be that person. Don't be that fan.
Yeah, come on now. I mean, we're all fans. We are all here because we love this show. And we need new people to come into the fold and appreciate this show. And that's what's really going to keep the flame alive. So, yeah. Speaking of fans, we ought to talk about the folks who have joined us today. I want to say hello to Brian and Teppy Lizard and Earl and Valerie and Mountains of Elysium. Hello, hello, hello. And BC.
NBC.
I love BC. He's awesome.
This is my BC weekend. I saw him on a live call yesterday on Patreon, and now I'm seeing him here, which is awesome. Or he's stalking me, or I'm stalking him.
Something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things, though, that I've been asked, and I'm no authority on it, I don't have any insider information on this, but a lot of fans that have enjoyed my review have contacted me, and they said, okay, so what are the odds of a Blu-ray release? And personally, I think that the Blu-ray release it's a great want to have. Obviously, we've always wanted to have an HD release, even in 720. But now, since it's being broadcast in 1080, that is the possibility if they wanted to actually invest the time and money to press Blu-rays and then market them and then ship them. I don't think that that's really the business model that HBO Max wants to take, a streaming series, because they want people to subscribe to HBO Max for this show and then go into what else does HBO Max have. So,
and they've got a lot. They have gobbled up so many shows out there. A lot of them older, and I don't know exactly how many have been like re-upscaled. Like in the case of Babylon 5, that's what happened, or not. I don't know, but they have enough to where I know it's just a matter of time before I capitulate and then bundle. I don't know why I have Hulu, but you can bundle your Hulu subscription with HBO Max for the same price as just HBO Max. If you were to go to their website, you're paying $14.95 either way.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they did have like a half price offer for like the first 6 months when they launched it back a few months ago. But I don't see Warner just going through the process of creating inventory for a TV series that now maybe if the subscriptions go up, and I don't know if they have the data to track why people subscribe to HBO Max, or if you're having like if they can track the people who are actually watching Babylon 5.
Oh, I bet they do. I know Netflix does. So
I'm sure
I can only imagine that HBO does.
So if they can mine the data and see if there's a user base out there for them to be able to get, squeeze a little bit more money from that, blood from that stone, maybe. But I don't think that it would be like a mass release, because there are even series on, funny enough, on Netflix, popular series that they create that they don't even put on Blu-ray. And Netflix built their business on DVDs and Blu-rays.
They sure did back in the day when you had to send them in the mail and then you'd get the new ones after they got your old ones. That was the original red
envelope. Yeah. That's how you built the business.
We watched so much stuff back in the 2000s that way.
Teppy Lizard said, if it's mutual stalking is a problem for anyone, I mean, if you're within spitting distance of each other, I would say it's a first date.
It's all about perspective, right?
Yeah, really. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Earl has a great comment about avoiding B5 just because of the whole Cartagia and Clark parallel and the Markab because of the plague. And it felt like the whole world was doing a really crappy job of LARPing it. Yeah, this is a really lousy version of that. I don't like it. I want out, man.
Yeah, we can't change the channel, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I get that with those parallels, like it's a little too close to home. And I've been a big fan of escapist entertainment too. Like if I'm going to sit down and watch something, I really want it to make me happy and make me laugh and make me not think about everything. for a little
Sure.
while. Yeah,
Absolutely.
and I also agree with Teppy Lizard. Hey, mental health, absolutely important. And, B5, I think, is going to be on HBO Max for quite a while. I don't think there's any massive rush to get there and do it. It's not going to disappear in a month or anything like that. So I'll get there. But yeah, just kind of got to do what I got to do at the moment. And if you do too, it's okay. If you're out there struggling, you're not alone.
I like Earl's point here. It says there are newly upscaled Blu-rays of 1970s Doctor Who for crying out loud. When you can count the stitches in Tom Baker's scarf in HD, well, I mean, who doesn't? There's no excuse for B5 to remain low def pass. Now, Earl, I agree. I totally agree. The thing is that Doctor Who it's probably one of the best branded science fiction shows of all time. It has throngs and generations of fans that have spent billions of dollars in the franchise. Babylon 5 doesn't have that. Never will. So
probably not. No.
So there's no data point on if we produce X amount of, Blu-ray DVDs and put X amount of money behind it, then we're going to get X amount of profit. We're going to get X amount of juice for the squeeze, right? But no, I mean, you can put a Doctor Who, the brand logo on something and it will sell because Doctor Who fans are completionist fans. We're not that. Babylon 5 has never been that.
Not quite. And also, I mean, this whole project was to make Babylon 5 suitable for streaming. And the market for physical products has probably gone way down overall. Mm-hmm. So for a show like this that has a fan base, no doubt, but not a widespread like Doctor Who, like millions upon millions upon millions of people who are just, they're going to ramp up everything they could possibly get. Yeah, no, probably not.
What I'm really interested in seeing, though, is I really want to see like a more in-depth analysis and study of why they chose to do it now, why they decided to put any money behind it now, and what the process was. Like, I really want to see like what they did, because all of it, like I said, it's not like someone had a handful of information that was being parsed out at the times. It just went boom. All of a sudden, here's an article. We scanned it. We made it up-resed. And then all of a sudden, you're like, why?
Just, out of the blue, here we went. And I would love to think it's because so many people were pestering Joe about it that WB took note of that and finally just thought, well, if we're going to do anything with the show, I guess we can do this. And then this is probably about as good as it's going to get because, I mean, I would love to think that maybe there's some hope for new Babylon 5 in the future sometime. But knowing the way things are, the way they are right now, not likely. So,
Brian says TOS and welcome, Brian. TOS and TNG on Blu-ray didn't sell well enough to complete the other shows and likely have a bigger fan base than Bad 5.
Right.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, TNG. They did the full redo and makeover, spent millions upon millions of dollars doing that, and unfortunately, they didn't make as much money as they wanted with those products.
I said this in our Patreon call yesterday with the Mission Log fans. I said, look, because I explained some of this stuff to them too. And I said, if Deep Space Nine, part of the Star Trek franchise, which has probably one of the strongest fandom branding powers like in the history of ever, if they're not going to do it to their own show, it's very likely that as industry secrets go, all of the network execs and the bean counters follow everyone else's trends. They're probably going to say, like, look, Deep Space Nine's not getting that love. Voyager's not getting that love.
Nope.
Why would we do it to this show that doesn't have half the audience base or marketing strength that we have?
Right. Exactly. Unfortunately, I think that set a bar, and marketers and executives said, oh, nah, that's that. And it's, it's okay. It's okay. I'm very grateful that we have what we have.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And BC and Teppy Lizard are making good points here. Like, Warner Brothers Archive has print-on-demand DVDs, and that's true. So there very well may be a possibility that they can get a little bit more revenue off of these scans if people want to go that route. I don't know. I mean, that would be interesting.
That would be cool. Yeah. If they were up for it, if they would just put the word out, I'm sure they'd have takers. It's just how invested do they want to get? And really, how much are they really going to cater to the fan base? Because as we know, Babylon 5 is not a top priority for them.
I'll tell you what. I mean, I'm just glad that we got what we got. You know, I mean, I've been begging for like better versions of Babylon 5 out just so I can tell people like our friend, Bill Smith from Trek Geeks. I've been trying to get him to watch it for years, and he's like, I just can't get into the show because it has these effects that just take me out of the show. I'm like, I get it. I totally get it. Now please try because you can, right?
That's right.
I hope that it wins them over along with other fans.
Well, and do you know of other people who are going to watch the show now just because, one, of the availability and two, because of the upscale?
Well, I mean, there have been people on Twitter that I have been going back and forth with saying that, will you watch Babylon 5 now since you have an HBO Max account? People have been, they signed on to that for a variety of reasons. Like I signed on to it so I could watch the Watchmen series with Regina King, which is phenomenal. I have not watched Wonder Woman 84 yet. I am not going to rush to do it because of the, of the comments that have been made about it.
From what I heard.
But people have, the account, and sometimes, maybe this is what HBO's banking on, sometimes it's like, hey, I got it. I'll watch it. Why not? It's part of my service.
Exactly. Right? I know of a few people who are going to watch Babylon 5 just because they already have the subscription. They've heard about it. And so this is their in. They're going to do it. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited to see people discover the show and go through it for the very first time. In a way, you're kind of jealous of them just because it's like watching a child at Christmas. They're getting surprised over the things you've watched a million times.
Oh, I hope so. I mean, I hope somebody watches this, and this is for Summer. Summer just joined us. I hope somebody watches it and watches like Day of the Dead and said, "Man, this is the best episode ever."
Yes, there was a recent Twitter thread about the fact that Summer and her co-host on Babylon Podcast have had, how many years is it now? 11 years or more. This debate about love it or hate it with Day of the Dead. We even brought it to our show. We had them as guests.
Yeah, Summer and Tim are officially, they're the Statler and Waldorf of our show.
Yes, they are. Yes, and I really do hope you guys are, well into your 80s in the balcony and just still at it.
That magic chalk! What is magic chalk? That's garbage, that magic chalk. How do you transport an entire...
That's right. Oh my gosh. And so with that, I think that's a great segue into the other part of our show, which is Rebo and Zooty. Zoot. That's right. Zoot. Yes. Yeah. So let's start off with the primary question. Mm-hmm. Are they funny? Now, unfortunately, this is a bit of a catch-22 just from the get-go, right? Because we didn't actually get to see a whole lot of Rebo and Zooty, but we know that they were the it thing of the 2260s. They were on every channel. Like in Day of the Dead, Lockley's flipping the channels. They're everywhere. People can't get enough of them.
Mm-hmm. I think, okay, so I need to sidebar your question with a little kind of like, sidebar comment is,
okay.
Can we at first separate them? Can you or can you not separate them from Penn and Teller?
This is a very good question, right? Because every time I see Rebo and Zooty, it's Penn and Teller.
Right. So if you find Penn and Teller funny, do you automatically keep that onto Rebo and Zooty being funny?
That is a very good question. I would love to know in the comments what our listeners think about that.
So I think that has a lot to do with, Now, I like Penn and Teller I like their magic. I'm a big magic fan, so I love watching them do magic. Penn Jillette's humor for me isn't like really there, but I think that like the reputation on Babylon 5 precedes them from remarks that were made about Rebo and Zooty throughout the course of, I think it was like season 3, we started dropping Rebo and Zooty hints in there.
Yeah. Season 4, John Sheridan did his zoot. We know that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the big enchilada in season 5, where we actually get to see them and meet them. So with that said, somebody mentioned in the comments, Valerie, they're like the 2260s Monty Python. Yes, I would say so, where it's kind of a mix of physical comedy with, I don't know, how do I want to put it? I don't want to necessarily say juvenile comedy, but in a way, maybe that is a little bit of what it is. Because I'm particularly thinking of the line, Rebo, is that your ass or mine? That sort of thing. Like 12-year-olds everywhere are going to laugh at that. We all love a good fart joke. It's that kind of thing.
Well, yeah. So I guess it's like I said, again, it's hard for me to separate those two versus the Penn and Teller that they were live at the time. And I'm probably sure that I don't remember their career that well, but I think that they were peaking probably around that time.
I think certainly people knew who they were, and I don't know if they were doing like a Vegas show or anything like that, like they have been in recent years, but they were certainly around. They were definitely a high, as far as the magic world, especially, people knew who they were. Oh,
I just love watching their stuff. There was a bit on David Letterman that they did. They took David Letterman's watch and he had him like tie one of those price tags to his watch, and he wrote a price on it or wrote his initials on it. And then they did this magic trick. The watch disappeared, and 20 minutes later, they brought out this tray of raw fish. And and Gillette sliced one open, and there was a very tightly wadded up paper towel, and inside it was a plastic bag, and inside that was his watch.
Wow, interesting.
And I was like, okay. Like I said, they didn't really do any comedy, although their magic has comedy in it. But I was like, dude, I wish they did a magic trick on Babylon 5.
Yeah, I was a little surprised that they didn't, which makes me wonder, because they got recognized by a lot of people as Penn and Teller, are they trying to distinguish themselves just a little bit to make themselves Rebo and Zooty, where it's a little more of like the physical, goofy thing with the hats and stuff like that?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. What you have to or kind of figure out, well, what exactly are Rebo and Zooty? What is their style? Because it seems like it's a little bit of a lot of things. You've got the physical comedy, you've got kind of the goofy humor, but then you've also got like a nice solid knowledge base of what humor is cross-culturally. They knew Minbari humor, Narn humor, most forms of humor. And so they were good students of comedy. So without seeing the full breadth of their talent, it is hard to answer the question, are they funny or not?
Well, let's take a look at what the crowd has to say. So Summer says, Penn and Teller are an acquired taste, and their specials on discovering new sleight of hand performers are pretty cool. Their show on Sci-Fi Channel a few years back was fun. Years back was fun. Teppy Lizard says, I can't separate them, so I enjoy them. Funny, fun, yes. Okay.
Yeah. I am curious to know just how many people can't separate Rebo and Zooty from Penn and Teller, and if that affects your judgment as to whether or not Rebo and Zooty are funny. Because I want to know if we have a real distinct group of Lockleys, or if we have a massive fan base of, well, basically just about everybody else.
I thought that Lockley's line in response to them, I thought that was hilarious. I thought she was hilarious. I think it was one of actually Tracy Scoggins' best delivered lines.
Where she's exchanging with John, this is a story you're going to tell about your children. And she says, I'll get on to having some right away. Oh, heck yeah. Yeah. I thought
it was brilliant.
So, there's some great comments coming in. Let's do this. Let's see. Mountains of Elysium says Rebo and Zooty were not funny on the screen, but looked like they would be a fun live act. And yeah, I agree. They were entertaining their crowd for sure. Yes, I agree with that. Let's see. Teppy Lizard says Penn and Teller are highly entertaining, but Rebo and Zooty might have just been kind of a take on, as said, Monty Python. But maybe it's just that they're more appreciated. Common Bond and all. Yeah, I kind of feel okay, here's something that occurred to me throughout the week as I was contemplating, which side am I on? Are they funny or not? If they had been across the chalk line and seen somebody during the Day of the Dead, which pair of comedians might they have met or have wanted to have met? And I came up with Abbott and Costello.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
They're kind of in that circle. You know what I mean?
Well, Abbott and Costello or Laurel and Hardy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I find them to be a little bit more Laurel and Hardy-esque because Oliver Hardy, or is it Stan Laurel? I don't remember. But one of them was always kind of the silent one, kind of like the, you have the crooked man, straight man. And
yeah.
I think it's hard. I think also the Penn and Teller thing, are they funny or not, is I don't think they're as funny as much as they are entertaining. And I think that's a huge distinction because I think that there's I mean, entertainment can have humor, but I watch them for a very specific reason. Like if I want to go to a comedy act, I'll, say Eddie Izzard, Monty Python.
Eddie Izzard. Yeah, good choice.
I find them to be like direct, strict comedy, but I find Penn and Teller to, again, have comedic moments in a larger, more theatrical presentation.
Well, that is what we saw. But then when we get to the more serious conversation that they end up having with Sheridan and Delenn, where Sheridan says, you said things in your show or whatever it was that nobody else could get away with because you put it in a funny context. So they were making like political statements, and they were trying to inject some serious commentary into a funny act.
Well, I mean, comedy and politics have gone hand in hand since I'm not exactly sure how long, but I mean, take a look at George Carlin, for example. George Carlin's act was highly politicized.
Sure, and I'm not saying these things are mutually exclusive. I'm just saying they were beyond like a feel-good, wow act. Yeah. They were going deeper.
Well, I think that was important for, say, their discussion with Sheridan and Delenn, saying like, we don't want to do comedy anymore. We want to go more like, like what he said to Sheridan, like what you're doing, like important things.
Because people laugh at what they do.
Exactly. And they don't take, even if they had a message, they may not take that message entirely seriously. But at the same time, though, they're right in saying that Rebo and Zooty have the benefit of couching certain ideas in humor, and it gets across to a variety of different people because they may not see it as being an idea that's either threatening or manipulative because it's couched in humor. It makes you laugh, but all of a sudden it subliminally sinks in there.
Right. It gets in
then
you
the message the message gets across.
Right. Same like how we watch sci-fi because there's great social commentary, but you can say things that might not come across in the same way on say a situational sitcom. You can do it in sci-fi because you've got it in the space context. It's about space life. You can make the commentary in a different setting and it gets through.
Right. And I mean, that's always kind of been the strength of, say, other mediums like science fiction. Star Trek has made basically its bed in telling political hotbed topics of its time, its times, under the auspices of science fiction. The same thing for fantasy. You can say that there are certain, moral meanings and messages, to coin a phrase, and almost in any fandom, really, if you do that. But, going back to Penn and Teller, I think that the reason why they work in this situation is because I think they were like politically active at the time, and maybe it was, I don't know, like how much they maybe discussed kind of like the direction of their dialogue, but maybe Joe's like, hey, you want to say anything about like who you are, as a group under the guise of science fiction? Do you want to start crafting their characters based on your characters? Because I know Gillette, he had a podcast or has a podcast, and he gets fairly political.
Oh, he's got very strong political opinions. Yes, Penn's Sunday School is the podcast, if I'm recalling correctly. I've listened to it before. I'm not a regular listener though, just because my podcast time has gone way down in recent months.
There's another one. It was like the real shit or like no bullshit or something like that with Penn
I don't know.
Yeah, possible. Something I don't remember. Now I'm gonna have to edit this thing for content, and that's my fault. Yes, because no 18-year-old has ever heard the word bullshit before.
Oh, heaven forbid. Oh, my gosh. Well, we can put the 18-plus warning if we really have to, if we really get into it. Like, if we're really getting to George Carlin territory, then we've got to.
Yeah, but I'm not nearly drunk enough for that kind of stuff.
Well, that's what happens when you drink water.
I know.
Yeah.
But though, just to digress for a second, if we can do this now, if I can do this and this is coming across visually well, in terms of the quality, now I can do drunk Babylon 5 again, drunk history, so I can just fall asleep there.
After that one time we did it, I hurt the next day. I don't know if I want to put my liver through that again.
Oh, thanks, BC. Penn and Teller's Bullshit was a series on Showtime. So
okay, cool. Yeah. Thank you for the clarification.
Well, who would have been like a comedy duo of the mid to late 90s that would have been as prominent? Now,
Siegfried and Roy?
Entertaining wise, You know, it would have been so cool if they brought white tigers like on the ship.
Babylon 5 could not afford that in the budget.
No. Okay, so again, it begs the question: does having the actual Penn and Teller on the show distract you from the intent of what they want to do? If they just say cast unknowns, then would they inhabit those characters, and would you have believed more sincerely their motivations to leave comedy for politics?
That's a very good question. I am not sure of my own answer, just because Penn and Teller were still somewhat unknown to me when I watched Day of the Dead for the first time. I learned about them, later. That was my introduction to them. So they are Rebo and Zooty to me, but now I see so many parallels between who Rebo and Zooty are and who Penn and Teller are. Now they are a little more merged, but at that time, I had no idea.
Okay. And that might come across the same way to, say, newer fans, especially fans of a newer generation that are seeing it on HBO Max. I'd love to know if, say, hey, what do you think of Rebo and Zooty? And they're like, oh, they're amazing. Or,
I would love to know. Do they think that was complete BS? Like, oh my gosh. I mean, Summer said in the comments earlier that was probably a prime example of stunt casting.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's probably even more so now, just because Penn and Teller have only gotten more popular.
Well, there's stunt casting can go one of two ways. It can either be like, oh, that's a great idea, or that completely takes me out of the narrative because, say in TKO, which is one of my favorite episodes of all time. No one write me letters. I love it. I love Walker.
The heck out of him. What?
Yeah. I love Walker Smith. Walker Smith, and I also love Suntek O as the Mutado. I'm a martial artist, so I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's true. You've got that going. I love Walker Smith, and I really wish he would have come back at some point, just because he was an excellent character. But the way that episode is structured, I have problems. But we won't get into that.
Maybe that could be the next episode.
Haven't we talked about it before? I don't know.
But the thing is, but we can go from our archive. We have an archive, remember? We can take archive stuff and bring it back.
It's true. We probably did do it in the archive.
Yeah. So
I forget, man. That was 2 years ago now. I don't even
know. Say stunt casting, it's like if they brought in, I'm going to say for all intents and purposes, say Manny Pacquiao to be the boxer.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
That's stunt casting. So, I mean, of course, I got Walker Smith because that guy can act. But Manny Pacquiao can sell a better punch. So, that's the thing. It's or if one of the guys that he was fighting in the Mutari, I think it's Mutari.
Mutai?
The Mutai. They if there was an actual a Floyd Mayweather or a what's his name, McGregor, if they were in there as an alien, you'd be like, yeah, oh, here it is. Okay, so here's stunt casting gone wrong. In your favorite show. I know
where you're going with this, and I love it. Go.
It's The Rock.
Yep.
It's The Rock versus 7 of 9, because he's not in character to the character he is in Voyager. He does The Rock stuff. He looks at the crowd, does the eyebrow thing, right? Does the hand over. He does all of his traditional WWF stuff or WWE stuff, and it's not a character now anymore in Voyager. It was to get
the wrestling fans who were watching that on UPN to watch Voyager.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so that's stunt casting gone bad. I think that Penn and Teller's actually stunt casting gone good.
I mean, I really think they did a good job. So
I'm just waiting for stunt casting gone wild.
Now, but are they funny? I'd say, funny might be the distinguishing word, because I think they were entertaining. I thought they were, I don't know, somewhat just a nice and lightning presence on the show. Was it completely funny? When they're playing with the hats and stuff like that. I mean, I'm not laughing like the crowd is, See,
I am.
But I'm not Lockley either. I'm just that's interesting.
I like physical comedy. So when they're doing the hat thing and, I love that part of the bit. So that's just me. I guess
it's cute, but I'm not laughing out loud funny. It's a gag. You know what I mean? I don't know. I think if they'd gotten into the more complex stuff, if I when Delenn gets she gets the joke told to her. Like,
Mhm.
that's hilarious. The way she's cracking up, that's making me crack up.
I love how she says fish. Like Mira says fish like no one else says fish. Right? in the fish, it was the fish joke, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
La croca means, what is it? Small fish? Something like that? I forget.
Good question by Valerie there. Good comment there. Need to define funny. Yes.
Yeah.
Funny is, yes, humor is obviously subjective to everybody.
It totally is, right? So if you love physical action comedy and you're watching the Hat Act, they're funny.
Oh, yeah.
But then it's all a matter of taste. And clearly Lockley was not a fan. And speaking of fans, I do want to give a shout out to somebody on Twitter, Trek Files podcast. Sorry, I'm forgetting how to speak. Says they're for the ages, therefore they get a funny vote. And I do at one point want to take a tally. I'm ready.
I'm so sad that it's green and yellow instead of green and purple paper.
I don't have purple. The multi-pack didn't have purple.
I know.
Or I would have done it.
I know you would. I'm just saying.
It's sad. Very sad.
It is sad. That's okay, though. That's okay. Next time. We'll do it next time.
So, okay, in the comments, I want to know, are they funny? However you define that. Because we've gotten to the point where we have to say that's a matter of perspective. So in your perspective, break it down. Let's get binary here. Yes or no, are they funny? And I'll start making a tally. Norm, I want to know from you.
Can't I go last? I can't go last?
Well, we need to kind of fill some time so that the comments can filter in. If you don't want to give an answer now, the other thing we can do is transition to the other part of the conversation, which is, should they go into politics or not? Like, they're so good at what they do now. Are they saying more and getting more across, doing what they're doing, or would they actually do better by trying to get things done in a political forum? Well, see,
that's as the listeners are going to vote. I'll give you my vote first, and then I'll answer your question second. Okay, so my vote, are Rebo and Zooty funny? Yes.
Okay.
Because they did make me laugh. I can't say that they didn't. I love the hat thing. Like I said, I love physical comedy. Brian with a Y says yes.
Okay, that's another yes vote. Mm-hmm. And I'll chime in too. Based on what very little we got, I have to say yes, because if we had gotten more, I would have enjoyed it. I think I would have been a fan of Rebo and Zooty. So that's a yes for me too.
Yes,
and
from
Valerie says yes.
So going into the whole politics thing, I mean, I guess it really depends. Like, because obviously they were going into, like, say, the hotbed of, well, not the hotbed of, but kind of like the transitional process of what happened with Earth, Clark. You know, I'm sure that they probably weren't getting like gigs booked at the time, at least in Earth space, because this was the Civil War.
Maybe not.
You know,
yeah,
maybe they were playing to different audiences. Maybe they had to, and that's why you have to know all these different types of humor, because that'd be interesting if they talk about, say, like Narn humor, you know, or, well, Pakmara. Didn't they mention something about Pakmara humor?
They might have.
You know, but you have Narn humor, Pakmara humor, Markeb humor, Markeb's World, you know, or Bakari humor,
Minbari humor, yeah. So that kind of does inform them, though, that they've at least studied comedy across cultures, which might help them politically, understanding a variety of cultures and bringing that perspective in, point in their favor.
I mean, you know, it's like, I wish we got more of kind of like their motivation, because, like, what did they feel? They really feel that they could offer kind of like the political spectrum from leaping between comedy and politics, because they could have done it in their comedy. Like, you know, like today, say you have like, I don't know who mentioned it in the chat, but, you know, you have your Daily Show. You know, I mean, Jon Stewart is a master of political comedy. So is Stephen Colbert. So is Trevor Noah. You know, you have all these great political comedians that know their politics and can stand. I mean, Jon Stewart can stand toe to toe with anyone. Politician and
he's so good.
Destroy them. You know, absolutely. Like on policy. But he does it in a funny way. You know, so why not stay in comedy? You know, why not give people a reason to, first of all, tune in because you're funny, because they like what you're doing, but then, you know, start working on new material that allows them to slide in comedy. Like, I love watching Trevor Noah, first of all, because, man, his Trump impersonation is freaking hilarious. And secondly, because he makes really good political points. And and some biased and sometimes unbiased observations, but he does it through humor. And it doesn't feel like you're just getting hammered over the head with, pundits from, a major news network. So that's important, because you don't want to get you don't want to tune out. You want to tune in.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically kind of like edutainment in a way where people are getting up to speed on current events, watching a program like that, but also getting good commentary and doing it through an entertaining format. Watching C-SPAN, pretty bland for a lot of people. They're not going to stick around for a lot of that, but people are going to tune into the Daily Show and learn about what's happening and get a lot of people get their news that way. Let's just be honest. So I am not sure if Penn and Teller would have succeeded in politics. Like, I feel like they're certainly knowledgeable enough and aware enough and have the capacity to learn. But I do wonder if they would have struggled to have been taken seriously by their fellow legislatures. Because, I think it was Penn Jillette basically saying, like, we want to leave clown school and, join these other clowns. Well, because you're comedians, people are going to expect you to be funny. That's how they know you. And so if you're going to try and be all serious on them, they're not going to take you seriously. At least it's certainly not at first.
Well, okay, case in point, do you take Senator of Missouri, was he Senator of Minnesota? I believe he's Senator of Minnesota, Al Franken.
Oh, right. Yeah, right. We have had instances of entertainers wanting to go into politics. Arnold Schwarzenegger rings a bell. But and Al Franken. Yeah.
Comedians specifically. Because when he gets on the screen, when he was doing when he does like Senate committee hearing stuff, and I'm like, am I really taking Al Franken seriously? I mean, am I? He is. I mean, he obviously comes off of, he knows his business, or he wouldn't have been, voted in by his constituents. But I know him as Stuart Smalley on Saturday Night Live. So when he's on camera, is he just going to turn to, and it's like, I'm good enough and smart enough, and gosh darn it, people voted for me. I mean, is that what I'm getting away with here, or coming away with here?
Like, is that? Yeah, how's that going to go over? That's my big question. Let's see. I have to vote in yes for Synth Addict and Teppy Laser. Oh, I have to make another category here for abstain. I'm going to get on that.
I'm going to turn on the light here, so I'm going to look like I'm going to going into the beyond the rim for a second.
It's getting a little dark outside. There we go.
Wait. And yes, the light banding is going to happen, but I'm sorry. Or either that I can't see.
I think it's just like kind of, you're getting a little groovelicious, it's mood lighting.
There
you go.
Yeah.
Yes, Summer, I did see that Jon Stewart joined Twitter. That is only going to make our lives better. I'm so happy about that.
Yeah. How many followers does he have? He must have 1 billion.
Oh, I think his follower count just exploded like 2 days in, and he's, in the hundreds of thousands.
Oh, the guy from the Love Boat, that's Ted Grandy. Senator Ted Grandy. Yeah, he was Gopher, the purser on the Love Boat. And the other guy from Dukes of Hazzard. So Tom Wopat or John Schneider? It's got to be Tom Wopat because John Schneider's still acting, I believe.
Okay, I do not know. Somebody out there will tell us, though.
Yeah, but Ted Grandy, he was in a comedic show. I wouldn't say he was written, as a funny character. I wouldn't necessarily describe him as like a comedian. Al Franken was a writer for Saturday Night Live. He wrote a lot of the bits at one point in time before he got before he changed position from writer to on-screen talent. So yeah, it's a weird thing though, because all of a sudden Scooter. Oh, you're right. Yeah, Scooter. So with a comedian going into legitimate politics, do they have credibility, or will they lose it immediately as soon as they swear into office? And people are like,
like that's always a big question. Also, Sonny Bono, thank you, BC. That's another great example.
But why though? Like, why would you want to do it though? Like, what? I don't understand like their motivations of doing it, because the war was won. The Interstellar Alliance was well on its way. Clark has been defeated. The Shadows have been ousted, and everything seems to be going well. So why politics now?
That's a good question that I don't completely think they answered. One possibility might be that they want to kind of help with the rebuilding, because after a massive war like that, there's a lot that needs to be done. A lot of things need to, be changed. There needs to be a lot of reconstruction of legislation and probably making a whole bunch of new laws to prevent this happening again. And maybe they want to be a part of that. Or maybe it's just from a personal perspective of wanting to be taken seriously.
I get it. I mean, it's
like maybe to them being taken seriously means being respected.
Maybe they just are like, I'm bored with comedy. I want to do something real with my life before my life is,
And here's another thought. Here's another thought is during the war, they had a lot to say. Well, now that the war is over, maybe they don't have as much material, but they still have a lot of political beliefs. And so they're thinking, well, maybe we can enact our vision of what we want to see happen for Earth.
It would be interesting if they were going to go because why couldn't they go up against Sheridan? Because, okay, it's not like in current modern politics and in political discourse and in comedy, it's not like, say, again, like the Comedy Central political comedians are lightening up on Biden. It's politics is always kind of like a hotbed of, or a source, a deep well for people to draw inspiration from a comedic perspective.
It's true. I mean, there's always somebody saying something crazy.
Mm-hmm. Man, look at the banding. I'm like, this camera's terrible. I got to invest in a new camera.
I mean, for right now, I'm kind of digging it. I'm just going to put that out there. Especially if you could change the color band and just make it look like a massive rave or something,
I'm doing this from ISN. My feed is, on Serial Plane and isn't quite strong enough. So
it's those darn jammers. They're ruining it.
Right? That not all number one on Mars. I mean, she got replaced. She's working for Edgar's Industries, and now I got to deal with whoever's trying to get me better bandwidth off of Mars. So
yeah, they don't completely know what they're doing. So, all right. Well, I think we've got our final vote. Yes is the absolute winner by a landslide. No votes. 0. 1 abstain. And so, therefore, we answer the question: Rebo and Zooty are funny.
Are you shocked by that poll, or? I
thought there would be a couple of no votes, but I'm totally okay with it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. How about you? Were you surprised?
Yeah, I just, by the sheer, well, first of all, I love having this many people watching. So the odds are in they were in Rebo and Zooty's favor, but it actually just has, we have more eyes watching the show now, which is awesome.
Yeah, it is.
To actually have a big poll, because the poll could have just very well been you and me, and that would have been not so much fun.
In the early days, that's kind of how it went, and that was okay. I mean, we do this show as if nobody is watching, but we do love having the interaction.
Yes, we dance if we don't have our clothes on. That's the kind of show that we do. Well, we do have our clothes on.
I mean, yes, we totally do. No. I'm not even. Well, I'm wearing shorts, not pants, but there's clothes on. Yeah. Getting into dangerous territory here.
We're still a PG.
We have a couple minutes left, Norm. Any final thoughts on Rebo and Zooty / Penn and Teller / comedy versus politics?
Well, talking about Day of the Dead obviously is fun, or an episode that encompasses Day of the Dead, always fun. But I think that it's an interesting thing. I love finding these. This is one of the reasons why we love doing the Zócalo, is because it's not necessarily a strict kind of rewatch coverage show, where
right.
We're looking at different topics and we're looking at things people are probably like, why would you do it? If they saw, the post earlier, why would you even want to talk about Rebo and Zooty? How could you fill enough time to be able to talk about it? They were on for all of maybe 5 to 7 minutes of screen time.
They don't know us, do they?
No, this is what we do. We
like to deep dive. We like to get into these really weird topics.
Yeah, because these are topics when you're watching the show, you're like, why'd they cast them? Why somebody else? Or why, why does Lockley not think that they're funny? What's wrong with her? Or as soon as they walked into the room, most of the people that were in the reception area were, they were, guttural laughing.
Right. Well, I have a feeling, Lockley, not a big fan of the physical comedy, probably not a Monty Python fan. And there's just folks out there who are like that. It's fine. It's not her style.
See, the thing with Lockley is that I think she's the kind of personality that not that you can't understand it, because I think she's very intelligent, but highbrow humor just makes her work too hard for something that she doesn't think is worth working hard for. I think the kind of humor that she likes, is, or just maybe kind of like the social environment she likes, is just a good old fashioned, sawdust floor kind of environment where you can just like stomp your feet. And I think she's a concert goer. I think that she, more of a,
I kind of see that. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's why we've got all kinds in the world.
I mean, she knows her barbecue, so that kind of goes hand in hand, right?
And silly straws.
Yeah, she knows that too. So it's one of the things also that I love about our format is we can do something like this and take a topic that probably no one would ever want to talk about, and we can talk about it for an hour. But we can also let now, like, a lot of our new audience members start asking us what you think that you would like to hear.
Yes. There's an infinite amount of topics that we have not covered yet. So if you have suggestions, by all means, put them in there. And it's that time of the show where I pimp the Discord server. That's where we take the conversation after the show. And for the record, these links last about 24 hours from the moment I activate them. So if you end up clicking this link and it's no longer working, you can go onto Twitter and you can hit up me or Norm and we can get you a fresh link if you want to join in. We talk about Babylon 5. We have lots of photos of cats, adorable cats. We'll talk about Deep Space franchises and a whole myriad of other things. Pretty much anything and everything goes in their respective channels. So if you want to hit me up on Twitter, my handle is the Profanity. Norm, where can people reach you?
You can reach me at Lounge Lizard. And here's the thing, Char. So I think that we were trying to figure out what we were going to do for our next show, but we haven't done a Deep Space franchise in a while.
Yeah.
And I think I threw an idea out to you.
You did, because this last week, January 26th, I believe, was Threshold Day, the infamous Star Trek Voyager episode. And Norm has a few things that he'd like to say about it.
It's like the best Voyager show ever.
And I already know that's going to get some comments in the chat. So, we're probably going to do a Deep Space franchise on Threshold. We're going to do a deep dive. And Norm, you have a very interesting take on it. And I can't wait for you to share it with the class, because I already know what you're going to say. And I'm just waiting for their reactions.
And I'm not joking. I remember, like, Char, the first time I saw Threshold, my appreciation and my enthusiasm for Threshold is not, it's not here to like strike up converse. It's like real. Am I right?
I know. You take this very seriously. And while I don't fully agree with your points, you do make a very good case. And so we'll get into all of that next Sunday.
Oh, I'm so stoked.
It's going to be a hell of a show. I can see Summer rolling her eyes all the way from Southern California right now. Like, she's just like, no, I'm not watching this show.
I can feel most people rolling their eyes. And you know what? That's okay. I dig that. I completely dig that. I'm not
Come in for the roller coaster that's going to be this show, the train wreck that is the episode Threshold. And we're going to have a good time no matter what.
Creepy space lizard sexual assault.
See, she's not wrong.
I'm not disagreeing with any of that. I'm not saying that that's what this episode's about. It's like there's I'm not going to save it. I'm going to save it.
You got to save it. You got to save it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Save it.
We'll get into all of it. It's, oh boy, it's going to be a hell of an episode.
Hey, Char. Okay. So here's the thing. Before we leave, who is creepier? Tom Paris is a lizard or the creeper of the Pleasure Planet? What kind of pleasure would you like to have? I can give you so much pleasure.
I mean, okay. In terms of interacting with them, if I'm hyper-evolved lizard salamander Janeway, well, there's another lizard. I don't think that's terribly weird if I'm also that. But creepy pleasure guy gives off awful vibes. I am running away at full speed. And you know what? I am not a runner. I'm only running if my life is in danger. So that's the answer to your question.
But he would provide you so much pleasure.
No, he would not. Mm-hmm. He can F right off. God, we should do a deep dive on that sometime, because I've got feelings.
Yeah, we should.
And Summer's going to join us next week. I'm so happy. Oh, I love it. Thank
Yeah.
you, Summer. That should be fantastic. We got to keep Norm on his toes, so that'll be great.
I'm
okay,
ready, man.
guys, we ought to lock this one up. It is done. Stick a fork in it.
Yep. Next week, lizard babies. Awesome.
We're going there. We're going there at Warp 10.
Yeah, we are.
Oh.
Let's transwarp that. Let us transwarp that.
Okay,
So
how many awful puns before we end the stream?
No, we got to get out of here.
Okay, yeah, I have a heart out. I've got another meeting, so we got to go.
All right. Let's get some pepperoni pizza for next week.
All right.
Peace.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing ya.